If you are watching Daily World for the first time, this channel is for people who want to understand how the world actually works, not how they are told it works. Subscribe and hit the bell right now, because today we are going through something that affects every single person watching this. Whether you live in Manila, Lagos, London, or Los Angeles. You work more hours than any generation before you. You own less, you owe more. And the harder you work, the further behind you fall. That is not an accident. In 2026, the number of billionaires on Earth passed 3,000 for the first time in history. The wealth of the richest man on Earth exceeded $500 billion. Meanwhile, nearly half the world lives in poverty. The amount of wealth owned by the poorest half of all humanity is less than the amount owned by just 12 people. Today on Daily World, we are going to show you, with sourced, verified evidence, exactly how the system was built, who built it, and why it keeps working. In 2014, two Princeton professors published a study that should have been front-page news everywhere. It was not. Here is what it found. Professors Martin Gilens and Benjamin Page analyzed over 1,800 U.S. policy decisions across 20 years. They looked at who wanted what, and what actually got enacted into law. Their finding, published in a peer-reviewed academic journal, was stark. When ordinary Americans, the average voter, wanted a policy change, it had almost zero effect on whether that change actually happened. Near zero. But when economic elites and organized corporate interest groups wanted a policy, it happened consistently. Their conclusion, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a peer-reviewed Princeton University study. And it raises a question that nobody in power wants you to ask. If your preferences have near zero impact on policy, what kind of democracy are you actually living in? The ultra-rich do not need to break any laws to control government. The system was legally redesigned to allow them to do it openly. In 2010, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Citizens United v. the Federal Election Commission that corporations and wealthy individuals could spend unlimited amounts of money on political campaigns. Unlimited, often undisclosed. The Brookings Institution, one of America's most respected think tanks, states directly that the wealthification of politics has become a major problem in U.S. democracy. The financial sector alone spent $400 million lobbying in the United States in a single year. Another $150 million in the European Union. The result? Deregulation that benefited the financial industry, regardless of public opposition. And according to Oxfam's 2026 report, billionaires are now 4,000 times more likely to hold political office than ordinary people. 4,000 times. That is not an election. That is a selection. Medieval serfs were tied to the land. You are tied to your debt. The mechanism is different. The result is the same. In medieval Europe, serfs owed labor to landowners in exchange for the right to live on the land and survive. They could not leave. They could not refuse. Today, the mechanism is more sophisticated, but structurally, remarkably similar. Student debt forces young people to take any job, not the job they want, because the loan repayment starts before the career begins. Mortgage debt ties workers to a location, preventing them from moving to better opportunities. Healthcare costs in countries without universal coverage make leaving a job, any job, a medical risk. And credit scores, which determine access to housing, transport, even employment, create a permanent compliance incentive. Stay employed. Pay on time. Do not disrupt. A person in debt is a person who cannot strike, cannot protest without risking their livelihood, cannot easily say no. The chains are invisible. The compliance is identical. There is a term that political scientists use for what happens when the agencies designed to regulate an industry end up being run by people from that same industry. They call it regulatory capture. Here is how it works in practice. A pharmaceutical executive spends years at a drug company, then joins the FDA, the agency that approves drugs. A financial industry lobbyist joins the Treasury Department, the agency that regulates banks. A telecommunications executive joins the FCC, the agency that regulates telecommunications. Then, after a few years, they return to the private sector, with government connections and the knowledge of exactly how regulation works from the inside. This is known as the revolving door. It is perfectly legal, it is extremely common, and it means, in practical terms, that the people writing the rules and the people the rules are supposed to constrain are often the same people. Every hour you spend scrolling is an hour you are not organizing. That is not an accident either. The attention economy, the system by which your time and focus are captured, packaged, and sold to advertisers, is perhaps the most powerful tool of social control ever invented. And unlike debt or lobbying, most people participate in it voluntarily and happily. Social media platforms are not designed to inform you. They are designed to maximize the time you spend on them, using dopamine reward loops, outrage cycles, and personalized content that keeps you emotionally engaged and politically fragmented. A population that is angry at each other, divided by algorithm-generated culture wars, too exhausted and outraged to organize around shared economic interests, is a population that does not threaten concentrated power, and the people who own those platforms are among the wealthiest humans who have ever lived. The Fairness Foundation's 2025 Wealth Gap Risk Register states directly, when you control those media channels, their influence delegitimizes political projects that challenge elite power. In January 2026, as the world's most powerful people gathered at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Oxfam released its annual inequality report. Here are the numbers. Billionaire wealth grew 3 times faster in 2025 than in any previous year, reaching the highest peak ever recorded. The number of billionaires passed 3,000 for the first time. The 2.5 trillion rise in billionaire wealth in a single year would be enough to eradicate extreme global poverty 26 times over, 26 times, in 1 year. Meanwhile, fossil fuel subsidies globally reached 7 trillion in 2022 because those with concentrated wealth have concentrated influence over which industries governments protect. Oxfam's report is titled, "Resisting the Rule of the Rich: Protecting Freedom from Billionaire Power." It explicitly states that rising oligarchy is undermining societies worldwide, and that the surge in billionaire wealth coincides with a dangerous shift in political power. Before we finish, fairness requires us to present the counterargument, and there are genuine ones. Global poverty has declined dramatically over the past 50 years, even as inequality has grown. Technology created by wealthy entrepreneurs has improved billions of lives. Not every wealthy person is lobbying against public interests. Many are genuinely philanthropic. And the Brookings Institution points out that income inequality in the United States actually significantly declined after World War II through progressive taxation and public investment. That reversal came in the 1970s, when those policies were systematically undone, which means this is not an inevitable condition of civilization, it is a policy choice. And policy choices can be changed. Oxfam specifically calls for stronger firewalls between wealth and politics, tougher lobbying regulations, more media independence, and taxes on extreme wealth. None of those things require revolution. They require an informed public, which is why what you do after watching this video matters. A Princeton study showed your preferences have near zero impact on policy. When elites are pushing the other way, debt keeps you compliant. Lobbying keeps government aligned with wealth. Regulatory capture keeps the watchdogs loyal to the industry. And the attention economy keeps you too fragmented and distracted to organize. That is the system. And the first step to changing any system is understanding how it works. If this video helped you understand something you had felt but never had the words for, share it with one person who needs to see it. Like it. Subscribe to Daily World, because the most powerful thing you can do in a system designed to make you feel powerless is stay informed and keep asking the questions they do not want you asking.